Welcome to this week's edition of Mountain Outhouse News. I'm your host, Jam. This is the craziest to happen in running this week. This week's stories include a new Mount Tam hill climb FKT, the latest addition to the 100 x 100 mile club, and how Jim Walmsley nabbed a Western States entry slot. Well folks, it's been a hot minute, but we're back with the news and back for good. Join us weekly here at Mountain Outhouse News for the latest and greatest stories from the sport of running. We missed a few key stories from earlier this part of 2021 that I just have to touch on. First up is a new FKT of the harrowing rim-to-rim-to-rim alternate. This was originally popularized by the founders of fastestknowntime.com themselves, Buzz Burrell and Peter Backwin, who helped pioneer this run across Grand Canyon and back on the South and North Bass Trails, complete with a swim of the Colorado in the middle. Peter finished that back in 2014 in 16 hours 15 minutes. The Coconino Cowboys then took on that challenge in 2018 and lowered the time to 12 hours 20 minutes. With the release of the rim-to-rim-to-rim alt film about that run, we've seen an increase in activity this past winter season. First, the women's trio of Suzanne Sunny Stroher, Kristen Douglas, and Lexi Miller completed the first known female unsupported record, 22 hours, 27 minutes in October. That was followed up by Rob Krar and Mike Foote, who on New Year's Eve day lowered the Cowboys' time to 11 hours, 32 minutes, most likely due to the fact that they didn't waste time with wetsuits and instead crossed the Colorado River in the buff. Not sure if that will now be a part of attempts going forward, or maybe it will set a new category of FKTs altogether. Live streaming. Some major strides are being made on the live streaming front of running events here in the US. Following up on their live coverage of the Carbon X event in 2019, Hoka went all in here for a full day of live coverage of the Carbon X2 event in Chandler this past January. Next up was our broadcast of the Black Canyon 100K, almost 11 hours covering this point-to-point Arizona trail race in February. And finally, this weekend was Sidious Mag's coverage of the Texas qualifier. And yes, those drone shots on the track were amazing, even the crash into the goalposts. Speaking of those events, they deserve a bit of coverage in their own right, starting with Carbon X2, which aimed to put athletes under the current 100K world record of 6:09:14, set in 2018 by Nao Kazami of Japan. The course was set on a combination of paved roads and drag strip in Chandler, Arizona, also the site of the marathon project held December. Conditions were ideal with cool temps and overcast skies. Jim Walmsley broke away from the field after the 50K mark and went on to shatter Max King's American record and come just 12 seconds away from Kazami's mark, running a 6:09:26, truly heartbreaking to witness. On the ladies' side, we saw Audrey Tanguy of France win her first ever road race. That's right, in 7:40:26. Got a shout out Rajpal Panu, who ran just over King's former record in 6:28:31 for second place. As for Black Canyon, we saw 4 golden tickets on the line for this point-to-point 100K. Conditions were also ideal here with a relatively cool day and low river crossings to contend with, giving athletes the full route to Emory Henderson. Due to COVID restrictions, runners were crewless and not permitted to utilize pacers the first 50 miles, adding to the challenge of the day. On the ladies' side, we saw former pro triathlete Lisa Roberts leading the first half of the way before being overtaken by eventual winner Brittany Peterson around Black Canyon City. Peterson went on to set a new course record in 8:48:32, placed 10th overall. Lisa came in second in 9:13:12, and Sarah Kais was third in 9:18:06. Golden tickets were awarded to third place Sarah Kais and fourth place Mariah Vargas. For the men, we saw plenty of lead changes throughout the day, including Brian Whitfield and Craig Hunt, who both dropped mid-race. But it was ultimately Tyler Green who won in a stout 8:06, with Eric Sensman bouncing back from a rough patch at Table Mesa to nab the second ticket in 8:10. Nick Coury ran up through the field all day, placing third in 8:16. Stay tuned for the last golden ticket race of the season, coming April 24th, pending COVID restrictions, at the Canyons Endurance Run on portions of the Western States course. Hey, if you're enjoying this week's show, please drop a like on the video and comment below your favorite story of the week and why. In the past couple months, we've seen a spike in trail and ultra-related acquisitions in our industry. Some of those are affecting industry leaders that have helped shape the sport over the past decade. Let's take a quick peek at these moves and how they might affect the future of our sport. First up, iRunFar.com. Originally a blog started by Brian Powell, the website evolved into the cutting-edge Twitter race coverage of our sport by both founder Brian and his partner, both in business and life, Megan Hicks. From athlete interviews, news articles, and event coverage, trail ultra running would not be where it is today without iRunFar. They announced the change in a January 22nd article on their website entitled iRunFar's Next Steps. iRunFar was acquired by the All Gear Group within Lola Digital Media, which also oversees Gear Junkie, Bike Rumor, Switchback, Travel Explorer's Web, and more. Sounds like with this comes financial backing and resources to help Megan and Brian with the future growth of iRunFar, and it sounds like they will remain an integral part of the website for the foreseeable future. Next up is Mark Gilligan's ultrasignup.com. I have an intimate connection with this race registration platform as it launched in 2009, just as I was getting into the race directing game. After that first year of accepting paper checks and PayPal payments, I jumped at the chance to have an online race registration component dedicated to ultras. Mark's website grew from a few initial races to eventually encompass the majority of ultra trail races in the US and beyond, hosting registration for close to 4,000 events annually, including some of the most prestigious US events. Ultra Signup is a model for a business successfully solving a problem in a niche market. Where would we be today without Ultra Signup rankings, athlete result pages, and those entrance lists we all look at to see which friends will be joining us at the next Ultra start line? Ultra Signup was acquired by a Tennessee firm called Ativa Labs, which is a software development company. Gilligan seems to be sailing off into retirement, recently announcing he'll be hitting the Pacific Crest Trail this month for a thru hike. Bill Carr, who was Mark's right-hand man, will remain with the company and work with the new team. Our final one comes to us this past week as Pocket Outdoor Media acquires Outdoor Magazine, Outside TV, Gaia GPS, Peloton Magazine, and Athlete Reg. From the headlines, this is a big move, and the conglomerate company will now be known simply as Outside. Let's move into some fastest known time news. First up is Tyler Andrews, who dropped from Hoka's Carbon X2 in January and instead moved on to tackle something on the opposite spectrum of things in the running world, an FKT on Ojos del Salado, the second highest peak in South America in Chile. Tyler is no stranger to this type of running as he also holds the FKT for Lukla to Everest Base Camp in Nepal, Pichincha Traverse in Ecuador, and Salcante Trail in Peru. For this one, he ran 33.5 miles round trip, starting from 14,800 to the summit of the world's highest volcano at 22,600 above sea level, and broke the former record by a shocking 12 hours to 9 hours 29 minutes. Wow. Next up, we head to the infamous Mount Tam hill climb out of Mill Valley, California, to the demise of locals like Patty O'Leary, who saw Jim Walmsley swoop in back in 2017 to lay claim to the FKT's ascent crown. They've held on to the ladies' local best time of 38:30 by E.O. Wang in 2016. Well, now, outsiders own both records, as Bailey Kowalczyk of Boulder, Colorado set a blazing fast time of 37 minutes 3 seconds. Bailey has been on a tear as of late on the FKT scene, also nabbing Mount Diablo, Boulder Skyline Traverse, Barren Green Mountains, and Mount Sanitas. Strava news, I just became the local legend of unknown trail from unknown trail intersection to unknown trail intersection. If you're looking to beat me on that, good luck finding it. And to keep my newly inflated ego in check, just a day later, I got an email notification from Strava that I had been dethroned on my Quartz Peak descent by none other than Ultra co-founder Golden Harper, who must be getting some desert time in this week. This next segment is normally our viewer story of the week, but since we've been MIA for quite a bit, we don't have one this go around. Instead, I'm calling out to the Outhouse Nation, send us a video story or check-in before next week's show, and we'll include you right here. We're excited to share that Frederick Davis III has become the next to join the illustrious 100 by 100 Club of Ultra Runners. This is for those who have completed 100 or more 100-mile races in their running career. We know Fred well from his many times coming out to Across the Years. He calls Benford, Ohio home, and thanks to ultra running history, who must have done a recount, discovered that Fred completed his 100th at the 20-day running festival in Johannesburg, South Africa, December 13th, 2019. Fred is now 72 years young and started running 100-milers in 1991. Along the way, he's finished Vol State 4 times, more than 500 total ultras marathons, and 12 10-day races in New York. After withdrawing his name from the Black Canyon 100K entrance list just days prior to the race this year, we were wondering how Jim Walmsley might find his way into the 2021 Western States 100. He of course earned a spot in the last year's canceled race thanks to his win and course record from 2019, but declined the spot instead to run Comrades. Once that was off the table, he was needing to run a golden ticket event to race his way back in, but due to Carbon X2 being so close to the first two in the season, it was not possible. Well, just this week, Jim announced he's now on the entrance list for Western. So how'd he manage? Well, if you go to the Western States Endurance Run website and click on 2021 runners, they actually transparently display how each entrant gets their slot in the event, whether through lottery, golden ticket races, Ultra Trail World Tour, or race admin. If you go to Jim Walmsley's name, you'll see he was granted a sponsor slot thanks to Hoka. Mystery solved. Since our last edition of the Outhouse News broadcast, we've started a new podcast on this channel, simply known as the Mountain Outpost Pod. Join Skylar Hall and myself each Tuesday night for an expanded look at what's hot on the running scene each week. Join us live in the chat for Q&A, or catch it all on podcast platforms as an audio format to digest on your commute or long run over the weekend. This week's bonus story, only available for our Patreon supporters. I'm going to be talking about my racing plans for the year as an athlete and where you can catch me this season. Hang on, folks, take a deep breath. This episode is a little bit longer than normal, but I hope to be back to a more digestible version next week. Let's get to this week's race results. First, Copper Corridor 50K. Yep, we were back for the second edition out of Superior, Arizona, for this unique race starting and finishing in downtown on Main Street, with a tour of the Arizona Trail along the way. Leading the way for the women was Kristen Mullins, her first ultra victory from the looks of it, and a new course record in 4:58. Second was Sarah Garrigan of Phoenix in 5:38. For the men, Drew Fries of Flagstaff was your winner in a speedy 3:50.35, followed by Nicodemus De La Rosa in 4:06. The top four men were under last year's winning time. Next up, we go with the 40th running of the Jed Smith Ultras in Sacramento. This flat and fast course saw some speedy times with Rich Hanna, aged 56, running a smoking 5:50 winning time for the 50 mile, 20 minutes off course record. Multiple-time champ here and women's winner Beverly Anderson Abbs, also age 56, ran a 7:07 for 5th overall. Bev has the top two times of 6:14 and 6:18. In the 50K, Malcolm Richards won for the men with a new course record of 2:51 ahead of Chikara Omine, second in 2:59, also under the course record set way back in 1993 by Dennis Rude. Megan Canfield of Cool won for the ladies in 3:59. Thank you for tuning in to episode 193 of Outhouse News. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episode, and if you'd like to support the show, please join Steep Life Media on Patreon, where you'll enjoy bonus content each week, right from me for as little as $2 per month. We want to mention by name our $25 level supporters and up. At the $100 level, Brian Sands. The $50 level, Squirrels Nut Butter, Mark Grabowski, Peter and Patty Curry, as well as our $25 level supporters, Carrie Savage, Michael Perez, Nick Bailey, Steve De La Cruz, and York Beach Runner. And finally, if you'd like to own this week's pair of Jam Jam sunglasses, check out the link below. Have a shitty week.